Welcome back to our Friday financial series where we're delving into all the financial sides of RV life and camping. We are now in our budgeting side of the financial series. Last week we talked about how to budget for camping fees, and this week we're talking about budgeting for diesel and gas fuel costs. So if you saw our video about the differences in spending, or the differences in spending between stationary Airstream life and traveling Airstream life, you saw that one of the costs that had a big difference, and one we did not anticipate, was our diesel or fuel costs. Now, we were stationary for a year in our Airstream, and we tracked our spending throughout that entire time. If you didn't see the video about tracking spending, check it out. Very important you do so. It really helps you figure out what you're going to be spending in later years. But anyway, we tracked our spending that entire time, and on average, we were paying about $150 in fuel costs during that time. Now, we knew that was going to drastically change when we hit the road. One, because we got rid of a vehicle. We got rid of the car that we had when we were stationary. Two, we're going to be traveling to places with our towing our Airstream. And three, we were planning to go all over the country, so it wasn't just like a daily commute. So we were thinking, okay, well, spend $150 stationary in Tucson. Let's say we're going to spend $250. And that is kind of what we budgeted. We didn't really do a very good job of trying to think through how to budget for diesel costs. Now we know better. So how do you budget for your fuel costs? Where do you plan to go? That's probably the number one thing to ask. If you're just planning to spend a month in a place, just do little day trips, not really travel very far out of a state, then the total mileage you're going to be putting on your vehicle is probably not very high. However, if you're planning to do a massive tour like we did, where we left Tucson, went through Utah, did California, did Oregon, did Idaho, did Montana, before coming back, that's a lot of miles. And most of those miles are pulling the Airstream. So one thing to consider is the number of miles you plan to travel with your RV. Secondly, what is the difference? Well, first off, what is your gas mileage? How many miles do you get in a gallon of gas or a tank of gas? Not towing, just what is your fuel mileage? Now, do you know how that changes when you tow, or if it's your RV, I guess it's always that, but when you tow your vehicle or your fifth wheel or something like that, how does that change your fuel mileage? So you need to consider how many of those miles you plan to drive while towing your trailer or fifth wheel, because the fuel mileage is very different there than if it's just your vehicle. So kind of get a general idea of how many miles you're thinking of doing, what your fuel mileage is for your vehicle, both towing and not, and that can start helping you figure out how much you think it might cost. Another thing to consider, gas prices, fuel prices. Because here in Tucson, we are very lucky. We have some of the best gas prices in the country in general. However, we went up to the Northwest and California and areas in the mountains which had horrible fuel costs compared to what we were used to. And that made a big difference in how much we were actually spending versus what we thought we would be spending. So this year, we've kind of planned on traveling around the same amount we did last year, which it really helps that we tracked our spending, because now we know how much we spent doing all of that. So since we plan to do around the same number of miles, the same kind of travel, we're going to budget the amount that we actually spent, which I believe is $400 a month on diesel. A little bit different than the $200 that we thought we might spend. Double that. So things to consider when you're trying to figure out how much fuel is going to cost you when you're traveling. The miles you'll be driving, what will be with or without your rig, gas prices in the states you're going to, and also what kind of terrain, because driving in Kansas is very different than driving in Colorado when it comes to how much fuel you're going to be using. And therefore, if you're planning to do a lot of mountainous driving, maybe up the estimate of how much fuel you're going to need or how much you're going to have to spend because you're going to be in the mountains. So those are our main tips for how to budget for diesel or fuel costs while on the road. If I miss something, because obviously I did originally, and these are just what we're planning to do ourselves now, please leave it in the comments below so that I can learn and so that other people can learn who are watching this series trying to figure out how much their next camping trip is going to cost or how much full timing is going to cost. Stay tuned next week for another budgeting video, and we will see you then. Bye, guys.